Welcome back to Fearless in Faith. I'm your host, Esther, and today's episode is for anyone who has ever felt weak, weary, or wondered how they could keep going. What if true strength isn't about what we can do, but about what God can do through us? What if surrendering to Him isn't giving up, but actually stepping into greater strength? Our guest today, Daniel Millerer, knows what it means to find strength and surrender. As a successful entrepreneur, Daniel has built a thriving career, but behind the scenes, he has been battling a chronic illness that has tested his faith, endurance, and trust in God. Through his journey, he's discovered that weakness is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of God's power at work. Daniel, welcome to Fearless in Faith.
Thank you, Esther. It's truly an honor to share my story because for a long time, I didn't know if it was one I ever wanted to tell. But looking back, I can see how God has been at work in every step, even in the moments I didn't understand. I used to think strength meant control, that if I worked hard enough, planned well enough, and pushed through enough, I could handle anything. I built my life around independence, resilience, and success. By my late 20s, I was running my own business, thriving in my career, and living what I thought was my dream life. I was healthy, ambitious, and constantly moving forward. I loved setting goals and achieving them. I thrived in the fast-paced world of entrepreneurship. But then, something changed. It started small. Unexplainable fatigue, muscle pain, days where my energy just wouldn't come back. I told myself, "You're just tired. You've been working too hard, push through." So I did. But the symptoms didn't go away. They got worse. Some mornings, I would wake up feeling like my body wasn't mine anymore, as if my muscles had forgotten how to function properly. The simplest tasks, things I had done without thinking, getting dressed, walking upstairs, even holding a pen, became a struggle. Doctors ran test after test, and after months of uncertainty, I was diagnosed with a chronic autoimmune disease, a condition with no cure, no clear treatment, and no promise that things would ever get better. At first, I was in denial. I told myself, "I'm strong. I'll beat this. This won't define me." But as time went on, reality sank in. My body wasn't the same, and no amount of willpower could change that. I remember sitting in my car after a particularly rough day and praying, "God, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be weak." And in the quiet, I felt God say, "You don't have to be strong. I am." It was one of the most humbling moments of my life. I had spent years building my strength, my independence, my ability to do things on my own. But now God was asking me to let go, to surrender not just my illness, but my very idea of what it meant to be strong. At first, I wrestled with it. I asked God, "Why would you allow this? Why would you let this happen when I have so much ahead of me?" But then He led me to 2 Corinthians 12:9, where Paul says, "But He said to me, 'My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me.'" I had read that verse before, but now it hit differently. I realized that God wasn't asking me to overcome this in my own strength. He was asking me to trust His.
Wow, Daniel, that is so powerful. It's amazing how God took something that felt like a burden and turned it into a testimony that brings hope to others. I love what you said about how your weakness isn't a hindrance. It's a platform for God's power to shine through. For someone listening right now who is in the middle of their own struggle, whether it's chronic illness, emotional pain, or a difficult season, what encouragement would you give them? How can they begin to see their pain as part of their testimony instead of just a struggle?
That's such a great question, Esther, and I want to speak directly to anyone listening who feels stuck in their struggle right now. First, I want you to know this. Your pain is not wasted. I know it might not feel like it in the moment. I know it might seem like nothing good could come from what you're walking through. But let me remind you, God is not just with you in the victory, He is with you in the valley. Here are 3 things that help me shift my perspective and see my pain as part of my testimony. 1, realize that God is still writing your story. When I was first diagnosed, I thought my story was over, that my illness had ruined God's plans for my life. But I've learned that God's purpose doesn't stop because of our struggles. Think about Joseph, betrayed, imprisoned, forgotten. But what did he say at the end of his journey? What was meant for evil, God used for good. Your struggle might feel like the end, but with God, it's just a chapter in the greater story He's writing. 2, let God use your pain to help others. There is something powerful about sharing what you've been through. When that young man told me that my story gave him hope, I realized that my struggle wasn't just about me. God was using it to reach others who needed encouragement. Sometimes your breakthrough will be the very thing that helps someone else believe they can make it through too. So instead of asking, "Why am I going through this?" start asking, "God, how can you use this?" 3. Stop waiting for perfect conditions to live out your purpose. For a long time, I thought I had to wait until I was healed or until my life was back to normal before I could be used by God. But then I realized God doesn't need me to be fully healed to fully use me. Even in my struggle, I can encourage, uplift, and testify about His faithfulness. To anyone listening right now who feels like they have to wait for their life to be perfect before they can step into their calling, don't wait. God's power shines brightest in imperfect, broken places. Your weakness does not disqualify you. It actually qualifies you for His strength to be revealed.
Daniel, your testimony is such a powerful reminder that God's strength is made perfect in our weakness. Thank you for sharing your journey with such honesty and faith. If today's episode resonated with you, we would love to hear from you. Share your biggest takeaway, send us a message, or leave a review. And if you know someone who needs encouragement, share this episode with them. Because sometimes all it takes is one testimony to remind someone that they are not alone. And remember, true strength is found not in striving, but in surrender. Until next time, keep walking in fearless faith.